Sadr City, Iraq, June 2004. In a now daily occurrence, U.S. troops clashed with gunmen loyal to radical Shiite cleric Muqtada al-Sadr. This teeming Baghdad slum, the stronghold of al-Sadr's Mahdi army, is now swollen with heavily armed militiamen returned home from failed insurrections in Kufa, Najaf, and elsewhere in Iraq. They will, they claim, defend Sadr City, their hometown, to the end. Hello and welcome. I'm Jackie Schechner, and this is Kuma War. Shiites in Iraq make up about 60% of the population, and while they suffered brutal repression at the hands of Saddam Hussein's Sunni-dominated regime, they now stand to inherit the reins of power here. But the radical al-Sadr has been excluded from the new government, and with the June 30th handover fast approaching, al-Sadr is now engaged in a violent, last-ditch struggle for power in the new Iraq. Join us today on patrol with America's 1st Cavalry Division through what may be the next, or even the last, battleground of Operation Iraqi Freedom, Sadr City, Baghdad. We're pleased to welcome back Major General Thomas L. Wilkerson, CEO of the United States Naval Institute and Kuma Military Advisory Board member. General.
Hi, Jackie.
And on the game development front, Dante Anderson, Kuma's head of product development. He'll walk you through the mission and describe basic tactics that you can employ.
Hi, Jax.
We begin with Muqtada al-Sadr. March 28, 2004. U.S. officials closed down Muqtada al-Sadr's weekly newspaper for inciting anti-coalition violence. April 4th, a senior al-Sadr aide is arrested by coalition forces and charged with the murder of a moderate Shiite cleric. April 5th, al-Sadr militiamen ambush and kill 8 U.S. soldiers, 1 from the 1st Armored Division and 7 from the 1st Cavalry Division of Fort Hood, Texas. 24 others are wounded. While resistance from the Sunni Triangle has been ongoing, this marks the start of militant resistance from amongst Iraq's Shiites. April 6th, coalition forces attempt to execute a warrant issued by the Iraqi Governing Council for al-Sadr's arrest. The cleric holes up in a mosque in Kufa, surrounding himself with armed supporters. Over the next month, the Mahdi army rises across Iraq in an apparent effort to spark a popular rebellion against the coalition and the Iraq Governing Council. They seize police stations and government buildings in several cities. They use some of Islam's holiest mosques as bases and arms caches, daring U.S. soldiers to attack them. But U.S. troops eject the Mahdi army from the 4 cities they control, and in the holy cities of Najaf and Kufa, force them to accept truces, requiring their militiamen to return home. And they do, to Sadr City. May 23rd, in groups of 4 and 5, Mahdi gunmen ambush 1st Cavalry patrols who return fire with grave effect. The attacks continue for the next 24 hours. By 6 p.m. the next day, 26 Mahdi militiamen are dead. U.S. casualties, 0. General Wilkerson, welcome. Why did this attack on the 1st Cav go so badly?
Easy answer, Jackie. Al-Sadr is an untrained military person. He's a mullah, and he's seeking power. So he sent his forces to the wrong place at the wrong time against the wrong adversary. In the 1st Cav, they were fighting some of the finest infantry in the world, and they were ill-prepared, and the 1st Cav was ready to fight.
On June 5th, al-Mahdi gunmen overrun a police station south of Baghdad, killing 7 policemen. They then rig the building with explosives and blow it up. Over the next week, gunmen attacked 4 more police stations, blowing up 3 of them, including one in al-Sadr's home base, Sadr City. He then, just hours after the last attack, announced his support for the government he just attacked. Is there a strategy here?
I think a very pertinent one, Jackie. Al-Sadr is a mullah without a portfolio, essentially disenfranchised. In order to prove his legitimacy, he had to demonstrate some form of military power. And we see that he's a fast learner. What he could not do with the 1st Cav, he did very nicely at police stations, which was right place, right time, well within his force's capability, and a very powerful impact. And as a result of that, I think he got what he wanted, which was a seat at the table with his older heir mullahs who are now running things, and that's exactly what he was looking for.
The fighting in Iraq is taking on the appearance of a civil war, and U.S. and coalition troops are caught right in the middle of it all right now. What will happen come June 30th with the Sunni Muslim insurgency and the Shia majority left to battle it out for power? Will we see a breakup of Iraq?
I think there will be very little change, and this is because the U.S. and coalition forces have committed to continuing the presence of their armed forces until the Iraqi central government can sustain itself with its military power, its police power, and its ability to mobilize the economy and bring Iraq back to a stable situation.
In that vein, how realistic is the success of a centralized Iraqi government?
It's simply the only alternative that the U.S. and coalition forces can accept. We must be able to build that government until it can legitimately provide police power, social services, build the Iraqi infrastructure, all with the support of U.S. and coalition military power to the extent that they're able to succeed on their own.
Thank you, General. Now, let's turn to Dante Anderson, who's going to tell you what to expect from your mission in Sadr City.
Hi, Jax.
Hi, Dante. First, what is your objective in Sadr City?
As usual in the mission, you control a small squad. You're reacting to a report of insurgent activity in Sadr City. Your mission is to patrol the area, engage the enemy, and in fact, you will.
This is a new locale for Kuma. What interesting features should we be looking out for?
This mission takes place in the mean streets of Sadr City. It's tight, it's claustrophobic, it's a warren of tiny alleys and city streets. And even with the aid of satellite photos in real life, the soldiers who go in there don't know exactly what's going on. It's constantly changing. There's piles of garbage, crates, trucks, automobiles moving around, lots of civilians. It's a very, very tough operating environment.
And what is your best advice for moving through this mission successfully?
The first thing I would say is to play Mission 11, Patrol Ambush, Sergeant Snyder's tactical exercise #1, where he discusses moving in a small, lightly armed patrol using protective overwatch. You should definitely learn how to do that and do that here. The streets of Sadr City, it's the home field advantage for the bad guys. Tight streets, they know every nook and cranny, they're hiding behind corners, they're going to take pot shots at you. You have to move very cautiously, very carefully, and at the same time, you can't kill the civilians who will invariably be standing around.
Thanks, Dante. The filthy warrens of Sadr City are perhaps the most treacherous operating environment in Iraq. But with thugs like al-Sadr ready to throw waves of armed Iraqi youth at American forces, this is where we must be prepared to succeed. For Kuma Reality Games, I'm Jackie Schechner.